Democratic Governor Jared Polis says he's still fuzzy on the details of President Biden's new vaccine and testing rules. The Department of Labor is still writing them, but the governor says he does know that the state won't be in charge of enforcing them.
The federal piece is not, that's not something the state is involved with enforcement of. We are expecting rules from the U.S. Department of Labor, and we don't know more than you know at this point. We've read, just like you have, that there could be fines for companies or fines for however they choose to implement that under their authority, but that would be done through the U.S. Department of Labor.
The mandate details haven't been published yet, but we're already hearing the threat of lawsuits. The Republican National Committee promised to sue, calling the mandate unconstitutional. The Biden administration, however, doesn't think so. 9 News reporter Jennifer Meckles took the question to a lawyer with expertise in constitutional law.
Yeah, Alex, so a lot of questions here about, does the president even have an authority to issue a mandate like this? Attorney Christopher Jackson said there is an important distinction here. Biden isn't forcing every member of John Q. Public directly to get a shot. What he's doing is going through a government agency, in this case, OSHA, Department of Labor, and the law that created OSHA to keep workplaces safe. And that is how he's working to require companies now to protect employees from COVID.
But the law allows OSHA to pass emergency standards that say here is an immediate harm or potential harm to workers, and we're going to pass a rule to try to protect workers.
This rule and all its details hasn't been finalized, so we don't know what it will say. But Jackson expects we will see litigation challenging it and focusing on that emergency standard part.
But I think the broad challenge is going to be that the law only allows these kinds of emergency standards to be passed when employees are in grave danger, and there will be a dispute about whether that standard has been met in this particular case.
Final question, is a vaccine or testing mandate constitutional? Jackson says there is a precedent here, 2 Supreme Court cases from nearly a century ago.
So the first was in 1905, and it was called Jacobson versus Massachusetts. And the Supreme Court said that states have the power to enforce compulsory vaccination laws. Then in 1922, the Supreme Court affirmed that idea in a case called Zucht versus King, where it held that schools could refuse to admit students who weren't vaccinated. And so what we have is, for over 100 years, a pretty long-standing precedent where the Supreme Court has said the government does have the power to protect public health, to require individuals to get vaccinated.
And as recently as this summer, the court stood by that precedent. The Supreme Court refused to block Indiana University's requirement that students get a COVID-19 shot. Again, we still don't know when this new mandate will be finalized or how it's going to look exactly or how it will be enforced here in Colorado. Alex?
Still so many questions. All right, Jenny, thank you.